You're listening to KNSJ FM in San Diego, 89.1 on your radio station. And also, you can find us streaming on the World Wide Web on the KNSJ website. Um, this is the show that talks about people, politics, and policy. Women of Color Roar. And I'm Angela DeJoseph, the host of the show. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. LaShae Sharp Collins. And Dr. Collins has been a member of this community. She's grown up here, and she also served in Dr. Shirley Weber's office when Dr. Weber was in the assembly, and Dr. Weber, of course, is now the Secretary of State. And she is running for that seat in 79, and we invited her to come on and talk to us. So good morning. How are you, LaShae?
Good morning. All is well. Thank you so much for having me, Angela. Honored to
Good.
be here.
Well, it's good to see you. And, for people who don't know you and don't know about your background, I do know that you are an educator. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in, growing up in San Diego and your education?
Sure. Born and raised in Southeast San Diego. I like to call Southeast San Diego the heart of the 79th State Assembly District. Born and raised in a two-family household, union household. And so I like to describe my upbringing similar to the Cosby Show. So I used to think of myself as Rudy and my parents, as Claire and all of them. So but my upbringing, it was a very wonderful experience growing up in a middle class family. And even though I've grown up in Southeast where it has been riddled with gang and gun violence and drugs and so forth, I wouldn't trade the experience of growing up right there behind Lincoln High School from anything in the world. In all honesty, I attended John F. Kennedy Elementary, which is now Walter J. Porter. Attended Gumpers Secondary School, which is now a charter school, and then Lincoln High School. And from Lincoln, I went on to San Diego State University, where I have obtained all three of my degrees. So I have a bachelor's in Africana Studies, a master's in education with emphasis in multicultural counseling, and also my doctorate in educational leadership with emphasis in higher ed. I am a proud mother of two. I now have a grown daughter, and I have a teenage high school son. And so we are just trucking along, having a great time navigating this political world together along this journey. And I'm a dog lover. I'm a dog mom, and I call myself a dog grandma because my daughter has her own dog. So I'm here not only having my two children, but also have my two dogs. And yeah, pretty much me growing up in San Diego, Southeast San Diego is let's just say I've learned a lot. I am still learning a lot. And I would not be the woman I am today if it wasn't for me growing up where I have grown up. I'm
Well,
being honest with
I
you.
want to ask you about your parents. I have West Indian parents. And so, their whole ideal of coming to America was, to have a better life. And they wanted their children to be, well educated. And that was, very important. And it was, so I wanted to know now, did your parents stress higher education to you?
My mother did, and my father did not. In all honesty, really from both sides of my family, the grandparents and the other ones, they did not stress. All they wanted you to do was to finish high school. But my mother saw further. She was able to say, hey, no, there's a lot more out there besides just stopping at high school. And so even though my mother, she graduated from San Diego State as well, has a degree in psychology, she went back to school. She went back to school, and matter of fact, we were in school together when I was trying to obtain my bachelor's. And so she went back to school as well. And my father, he also attended community college. He did attend San Diego State as well. Then he attended the community college. And so he knew about the experiences, as far as college, but that's something he really did not stress. He's always been supportive of whatever you decide to do. Actually, both parents, whatever you decide to do, we're going to be there for you. But my mother was the one who said, hey, there is a lot more out there, and I want you to take a chance. And of course, try college. And if college is not for you, that's okay. There's some other options there.
Well, that sounds like very progressive parents. So how did you come to work for Dr. Shirley Weber when she was in the assembly?
Ooh, so let me let can I take you back a little bit? Okay. So I actually have a long relationship with Secretary of State Dr. Shirley Weber. This goes back to middle school, actually.
Okay.
And I used to be on the drill team with Assembly Member Dr. Akila Weber. We both attended Gumpers Secondary School together. So we go way back to that time frame. And my mother has known Secretary of State Weber for quite some time as well. And so there's always been some type of connection as far as community, because my parents were involved in our community as well as Secretary of State Weber. So they've always seen each other in passing, or have the opportunity to work together on various projects and so forth. So, but when I was at San Diego State University, I used to work in the EOPS department, the Equal Opportunities Program, and I used to work in the EOP department under the late Gus Chavez, and I was looking for something different for me to try to move on to something else throughout higher ed, and I applied to work in the Department of Africana Studies, and I got hired on as their department coordinator, also known as their administrative coordinator, and I started working there, and I worked there for probably 12 years before she decided to run for Secretary of
Oh, she
State.
was
But
so
I'm
wait,
sorry. So
get
she was
this
working.
straight. So she was the runner,
So
she was
Dr.
in the
Shirley
department.
Weber was the department chair at the
Uh,
time for when I was hired in the Department of Africana Studies. And that's how we actually reconnected, was when I applied for the job. And she did not put two and two together at all until after, because she hadn't seen me in a long time. And by that time, I was also married at that time. And so that's how we ended up connecting. And I worked with her the entire time that she was in the Department of Africana Studies until she retired. And after she retired, she decided to run for state assembly. And then she just said, "Hey, what do you think about applying to run for, applying to work with me in the assembly?" And I did. And we stayed together for over 20 years,
that is
maybe about
something
21
else.
years.
That is something else. So now let's talk about, working in the assembly. And, one of the things that I try to do is to educate people because a lot of people in our community, they don't really know what an assembly person does. They don't know what a supervisor does. So, I talk to people and they go, they're not really sure. So, tell me a little bit about what exactly is the job of an assembly person.
It has a little bit of everything to it, in all honesty. I mean, we are at the top. I mean, I am not officially a assembly member, but having worked in that particular office, the assembly members, they are actually at the top of it. They are the ones vetting out the different legislative policies that currently exist, looking at all of the different laws and so forth. They're making the final decisions on that, making decisions as far as budgetary items. They have a peer review over different types of committees that currently exist, and they have to work on the accountability and the transparency and the budgetary items. They do all these different things for the state. So they deal with Caltrans, they deal with our medical system, they deal with our environmental system, they deal with the state budget, they deal with education, they deal with everything from the state level. And then they assign the different types of fundings to, obviously, to the local governments. And then it's our responsibility to oversee the local governments to see how things are being managed and then being implemented and so forth. So you're asking someone to be your voice at the state level based upon various different types of subject matters and or issue areas that exist: veteran services, education, higher education. The things are actually split up, so it's the K-12, then it's the higher ed. You're, once again, healthcare, let's see here, public safety, aging, and then also elders as well. You have different types of committees that exist that folks are on, and that helps govern the entire state of California.
So during the time that you were there, which is in the assembly, and I also had an opportunity to work in that same office for Dr. Akila Weber. So I got a clue. But one of the things that did not know really before I started working there was the amount of work that's done by our representative. So you've got the two offices, you've got the district office, and then you have the office up in Sacramento. Both are staffed, both have different responsibilities. And then the type of things that go on, even in the district office, the amount of
Mhm.
programs. Talk about, because I know that a lot of the programs, Dr. Keela Weber continued, but were actually
Yes.
started under Dr. Shirley Weber. Because
Yes.
so tell me a little bit about those programs. I mean, I know there was like the school program for the people who didn't miss any time at school.
Perfect
There's
attendance.
turkey drives, there's book drives,
Mhm.
there's so many different things. But talk a little bit about you and how you worked on those various programs. Let's just work on the district part for right now.
Sure. Well, I mean, some of the initiatives that we put together in our programs from what we've actually put together was based on different types of policy matters that currently exist, and then and things that our state currently recognize. So the state did recognize perfect attendance. The state have different types of programs for the middle class scholarship, and they had other things that currently existed. And so what we did was we created different types of advisory committees. We did create a senior advisory committee to help inform our assembly member. And that also had to deal with the fact of you had the aging committee as far as statewide, and you had Medi-Cal, we're dealing with the medical components. And you had a host of other things, homelessness, housing, veterans. But when you're dealing with seniors, we're dealing with seniors from all different type of the social economic factors. And so we created that. We also wanted to make sure that we taught students the purpose of having civic engagement and how valuable civic engagement is to elevate the overall voices. And so by doing that, we felt, or should I say, our current Secretary of State also felt that in order for us to have a pipeline of people prepared and ready to go to serve on boards and commissions and run for elected office, or even work in different legislative offices, work on policies and so forth, students had to be informed and they needed to know how to navigate the system and engage in those processes. So we created the our legislative program. So our young legislative program, which continued on right now as well with the Keela Weber. The perfect attendance challenge, folks love the perfect attendance challenge because we did have a crisis and we still do. A lot of people are still absent from school, and there's so many different types of reasons that falls into that. However, we wanted to honor those that did have perfect attendance, and not only did they receive some recognition from us as an office, as a state office, they also received some recognition from their federal offices, their local city council members, and they received a all-day pass to SeaWorld for them and their family. And so they were able to get that. We did our turkey drive, and we did that, of course, every Thanksgiving time. Pretty much, we did our turkey drive during that time. We
And that was
did
giving
our
giving out
holiday drive.
giving out turkeys and food to people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we gave out turkeys. We partnered with Feeding America and others as well, and other people who donated items. And we made sure that families they were able to have a wonderful holiday season and have a nice home cooked meal and so forth. So we did provide food for that. We also did holiday drives as well, make sure that there was a way for some kids to have socks and shoes, and toys and so forth, and partner with the Polinsky Center and some other groups as well as it pertained to Christmas time and holiday gifts. But there were so many programs that we pulled together that Dr. Keela Weber, Assembly Member Dr. Keela Weber, is currently continuing, and I will continue on to have a number of these different types of programs. There was one more too. We ended up doing our fair, so it was our annual back to school drive and giveaway. And at that particular event, we always gather backpacks. We partner with our local nonprofits, and the nonprofits would end up also donating backpacks and so forth to the event. And we would have people coming out there doing free dental screenings. They gave out free haircuts, free medical screenings, blood pressure checks. We would have the lowriders out there. We would have food out there, the Filipino nurses and Black Nurses Association. Some of the fraternities would be out there as well. And these are all vendors. So we will have Planned Parenthood and a host of other folks. They're tabling to provide information. So it was our annual back to school drive and resource fair. So we wanted to make sure that those had the resources available to them, and those who needed to have shots and stuff for them to go back to school. They were able to get that there because we partnered with our local medical centers, and those centers were there to provide kids needed haircuts. They got haircuts just before school started. So these are things that we've done, and this is ways for which your elected official's office can impact an entire community. And my last point would be, not only is it just passing bills and dealing with the public policy matters and dealing with the taxes and the budget and so forth. It really has to deal with us making sure that we are elevating our community's voices and making sure that their recommendations and their experiences are being expressed, and they're being considered, they're being heard as we move forward and make decisions on different types of policy.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the demographics of the 79 because the 79, is pretty. I mean, I know that the lines have just changed, but in terms of being able to have such a wide variety of cultures in the district, what are some of the programs that you all reached out to different communities with?
Oh, different programs. We did our Filipino Heritage Month celebrations. We did our Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. We did our Veterans celebration. We honored Holocaust survivors. We did we honored our black leaders, not only across the state but locally. We've also did our salute to women leaders, which is another program that we started and that Dr. Keelan Weber is currently continuing. We've done different things with some of our disabled community. So we work with our disabled veterans and work with the veterans homes and other places as well. So yeah, we've done just different types of things with all different types of communities, to be honest with you.
And then what about supporting the business community?
Oh, yes, we did business workshops. So we wanted to make sure people knew and they understood how they can actually come in and start their own business, and like directed them who they can go to. We work with the Diamond District on that. We work with the Urban League on that as well. We did some work with the NAACP and the San Diego Black Chamber. So we wanted to make sure, and also just the regular Chamber of Commerce, also just to make sure people were aware of their options and the steps that they needed to take to move forward to start their businesses, and then also advocated at the state level for additional funding for a number of businesses also. Your elected official can write letters of support for business, well, I wouldn't say loans, but for businesses to be considered. And so we've done that as well with a number of organizations, and one in particular would be Heartbeat. So Heartbeat Music Academy was another program that Secretary of State supported heavily and went ahead and advocated to make sure funding did come in, that she had support to get the Heartbeat Music Academy
Now,
launched. And so
what is that? The heartbeat.
Heartbeat Music Academy is a wonderful program. They are now known for their drum line. They have a youth drum line and also drill team that currently exists. And it is a mentoring program, but it also teaches kids a number of skill sets. But once again, teaches them how to read music. It exposed them to the HBCU life as far as the band styles and so forth, but it also connected them with that. But it is a wonderful youth mentoring program for which they have, and they have a whole education component and scholarship component tied to this academy.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about now the legislative side, which, is run out of Sacramento. So the assembly person is up in Sacramento, for half the time, not always in the district. So tell me a little bit about that and how, what are some of the legislation that you got to work on with Dr. Shirley Weber?
Well, you have to remember, I wasn't always in SAC. So, but when I did go to Sacramento and I had to bring up the voices or elevate the voices from our district, I mean, Sacramento lifestyle is fast paced. I'm going to tell you that right now. It is fast paced, and the way it works is you do have a whole staff of team there. You have a lot more staff than what you do here within the district. The district, you probably have about maybe four staff, 4 or 5. But while you are up there, you'll probably have maybe 10 to 15 staff and so forth. But the pace was extremely fast, and you had to have staff assigned to different issue areas so that way they're able to go to those various committee meetings. And they will go to those meetings and they will be there to, of course, to represent the member, but the member would have to move to different committees based on whichever committee they were assigned to by that by by the speaker for that time frame. And so they would move from committee to committee. You'll have a staffer moving you from committee to committee. You'll have meetings that are probably 10 to 15 minutes in your office. Can you imagine 10 to 15 minutes meeting back to back to back to back? So they would have meetings such as that to meet with different lobbyists or different community organizations that came up for their lobby day or whichever. But some of the bills that we worked on was the racial profiling bill, for us to get the whole to get the RIPA board established. We worked on the reparations, AB 3121, to get that particular committee established. We worked on bill for mandatory kindergarten, and of course that was vetoed because some people feel as though people don't need to have mandatory kindergarten but it's not mandatory, and we think that we should. We've been able to work on food pantries, making sure that our higher ed institutions have food available on the campuses for those that are obviously struggling and they need it because they ran out of money for their food cards. And we did legislation also that was brought up by one of our constituents to make sure that the EBT cards are now accepted on college campuses because at one point it wasn't, and folks were not able to eat while they were required to be on campus for X amount of hours a day. So those are just a couple of pieces of legislation, but we have a lot of key hard fought social justice legislation that was introduced under the leadership of Secretary of State Weber when she was the Assembly member, and it was an honor to be a part of that team.
I know one thing that I thought was really exciting was it's there ought to be a law, and so which gave constituents an opportunity to make suggestions of things that they wanted to see
Right.
laws done. So tell me, what legislation would you want to see if when you become the assembly member?
the There ought to be a law. That was our legislative brainstorm session, and those were fun, extremely fun. Well, I mean, first off, I still want to continue to make sure that we are protecting the women's reproductive rights in our LGBT community, 100%. But some other key legislation would have to deal with the accountability and or transparency as we still pertain to schools. We need to make sure that as we are electing school board members in schools that are receiving public dollars, have a public electoral process and or a public process instead of people just being appointed. And that's not, the actual full case when it comes to public versus charter. So we need to continue to have a further conversation in regards to that and make sure that they're both are going to mirror each other. Another one would have to be with looking at the electric vehicles. I know that we have a requirement to reach a certain vehicle miles traveled and our emissions and all these so types of different things by 2030 and 2040 and all of this. But the reality is this community or BIPOC communities will not be able to really afford electric vehicles. I would like some legislation that's going to require the state to help offset that and pay for electric vehicles for folks and also work to retrofit the homes to actually have the charging points put in there. And another one would be HVAC. And I'm talking about HVAC for these older homes here in the area. We have a lot of areas that do not have air conditioning, and climate change is real. And so we have a lot of seniors that need air conditioning in their homes. And so it's important that we go into to make sure that our senior housing definitely have some HVAC units there available to them. And that should be legislated by the state. And we should be able to have some funding there to go in and do that. Those are just a couple of things, but there's a lot more dealing with affordable housing and how we can address that and homelessness or some ideas for that. But those are just some other things that people typically don't point out. I do have one more. I do. It would be to look at the veterans itself and veterans who have passed on, making sure that their families can still maintain their benefits. When they pass, their family lose the benefit support. And I think that they should be afforded the opportunity to keep those benefits. And so that way they can continue to live a quality of life. Their spouse or family member has served this country and they should still have the right to keep that benefit.
One of the things that I belong to the Black Women's Collective of California, and
Mhm.
one of our objectives is to save the seat so that we don't lose representation, Black women do.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so this seat, from Dr. Shirley Weber to Dr. Akilah Weber, if this seat goes out of our community, so to speak, in terms of, women of color, then that means that it's going to be it'll be one less. For one, we won't have the representation in the assembly,
Right.
but
Right.
also all of the different things that you talked about that were happening in our community that were started by a Black woman who obviously has an affinity and a knowledge of this community and the needs of the community. That is something that's not like it's been carried on. It's not going to
Mhm.
continue being carried on because you're going to have
Right.
someone with a different agenda coming
Right.
in. And so I wanted to know, for people who are not sure who they want to vote for in the 79th, why is it important that you get that position?
It is important that I get this because number one, I am a person of integrity. It is important that we get this so that way we know that our voices will continue to be heard, they will be valued, and they will be respected. Our community will not be marginalized. And so if we do not maintain this seat, we can lose the current voice that we have for up to the next 12 years. And that is not okay. There's only so many seats that have Black electeds in it, and it's important that we do what we can to protect those seats and to actually keep those seats. And to have someone in this seat who was from the community, born and raised in Southeast San Diego, walked a mile in a number of our constituents' shoes, and who was able to speak truth to power in regards to what's going on in our overall needs. That is extremely important. It's easier to have someone there who you can relate to and have these hard fought conversations with and know that this person has your best interest at heart and can take this information to the state and make sure that policies that's being implemented is going to address diversity, equity, and inclusion. Me being a woman and being a Black woman, diversity, equity, and inclusion is always at the forefront for me. Social justice is always at the forefront for me. So when you raise the people who are at the bottom, just like they say for education, everybody's going to go to the top. And so I like to actually repeat the statement of the people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. And
Well,
so it's important.
no, I
Go
think
ahead.
that no, I love that. The people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. Thank you. Oh, I've got
Yes.
to put that on a t-shirt. But I want you to just talk about, the white people, the Latinx people, the AAIP people, the other people that are part of the 79, and how you plan to be the representative for them.
Well, I plan to continue on the way that I have been. I mean, I'm currently the community engagement specialist for the San Diego County Office of Ed. And it's important that you have the skill set of being able to cultivate positive and working relationships with everyone. It's important that you make sure that everyone feel comfortable and that they do feel heard. And what I recommend to people all the time in my current position is that you ask people, what is it about you that you wish I knew? And you sit in that question and allow people to open up and be able to tell you about them. And I have a genuine heart and a genuine spirit and want to know about everyone who I come into contact with, and understand their needs, as there's no one size fit all model approach to any type of situation, any type of policy or issue at all. And so I will continue to connect with our constituents on all levels by meeting them exactly where they are. I want to do work with them and not for them. They will have a seat at the table at all times. You don't have to worry about calling me saying, hey, what happened to me? It will be the work of our community. It will be our collective responsibility to work together because I can't do this alone at all. No one elected official knows everything, and you're elected to be the voice of your people. And we are all one, regardless of being Black, white, Latino, Asian American, or so forth, or even Native American. In the end, we are one. We are one. And we have to work together to make sure that we have a brighter future for our children that are coming up because we're getting older. So we're going to be leaving, but we have to get things right for those that are coming after us. And we have to do this work together.
And who are some of your endorsements?
Ooh. The California Democratic Party, the California Faculty Association, Planned Parenthood, United Domestic Workers, California Nurses Association, California Medical Association. I have dual endorsement from the Labor Federation, Ask Me 3299, Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, California Assembly Member, Dr. Akilah Weber, California State Senator Tony Atkins, and California Assembly Member, let's see, Lori Wilson and Tina McKinnon. She's also a Assembly member, and a host of community members. There's a list. It's over 140 endorsements. So, which is way more than what my opponent has currently. And so, yeah, I have the endorsements of the people, of the community, Power Pack, the Working Families Group. I have the endorsements of the people because I am you, you are me. Together, our voices equal power. And so,
And
yeah.
how do people get in touch with you if they're interested in your campaign?
Well, you're welcome to go to the website at LaShae4Assembly.com. It is spelled LASHAE, the word for FOR, assembly.com. There is a link there for you to click on for contact and also to volunteer. We're down to what, 18 days or so. So it's time to have all hands on deck. I'm talking about canvassers and phone bankers, and still make donations. It's still time available for you to make donations to the campaign. So that way we can make sure that we have enough resources to ensure that we're reaching our overall constituency. So you can go to the website directly and click on contact and say, hey, I want to volunteer. Put your information in there, and I'm a member of my team will get back to you.
Well, LaShae, Dr. LaShae Sharp Collins, thank you for being on Women of Color Roar. And we always are interested in hearing what you're doing and what's going on. And thank you so much for coming today and talking directly to the people. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Angela. It was an honor and a privilege.
Hello, everyone. It's Angela D. Joseph from womanofcolorroar.com and the Woman of Color Roar radio show. And I wanted to just encourage everyone to get out and vote. If you're in San Diego, you can go to sdvote.com and you can put in your information and find out if you're registered. If you need to update your registration, please do so. If you're in another part of the state or another part of the country, go to iwillvote.com and you can find out locally where you go to register to vote. The other thing is that you want to make sure your friends are registered because there are states where they're taking people off the registry. So you can check with your Secretary of State to find out where you vote and if you're registered, and make sure that your registration is current. If you've moved, you have to re-register. So I wanted to talk a minute about negative mailers. And so here in San Diego, we had negative mailers the last session, and we were able to get the Democratic Party to pass a resolution so that anyone that was, in the Democratic Party that was running would have to stop it, in order for them to get the endorsement. However, that's not everyone. And so I wanted to just point out I got one today and I was really disturbed by it. And this one happens to be against LaShae, Dr. LaShae Sharp Collins. And it's basically, has some pictures of her where she was, at a casino, but they've made this whole narrative like she's a gambler. But what's important when you get a negative mailer is to see who is behind it. And this one is paid for by the California Real Estate Independent Expenditure Committee, California Association of Realtors. So that makes you wonder, okay, why is the Association of Realtors putting out a negative mailer like that? So who's the candidate that they're supporting and why? So I wanted to just point that out because you have to think about, do you want to vote for someone who is aligned with an organization that would put out something slanderous like this? So that's the kind of thing that unfortunately, as a voter, we've got to educate ourselves. Don't just believe it because somebody puts it on a mailer and sends it to you. Just don't just believe it because you see it in a commercial. Do your own homework, find out who the candidates really are, but it's important to know who is funding the candidates, who's behind them. So that's my public service message for today. I look forward to continuing the conversation about voting, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching.